Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we're going to be upgrading the Black Horse Super Air. It's running a Just Engines 57 glow engine with its stock exhaust. The noise it makes is a little bit antisocial, so I got one of these, a Just Engines power pipe, formerly the purple pipe, only they're not purple anymore. I've got one of the old pipes on a MDS-38 and it took a lot of the high frequencies out of the exhaust, making it much less obtrusive. Okay, let's fit it. First job is removal of the stock exhaust. The pressure pipe will need to get removed, along with the two M3 screws. The exhaust left a thin gasket, we'll be wanting that in a minute. The manifold comes with its little packet of bits. The two new M3 screws can go straight in. They're a little bit shorter than the ones that originally came with the engine, but they will do the job just fine. Then the original gasket can slide on, followed by what feels like a steel spacer. I'm thinking the idea is to give the soft aluminium faces something hard to clamp down on. Not sure, but if Just Engines have put it in, there's probably a reason for it. Now the manifold can get offered up, making sure it's straight before doing up the screws. It would be quite easy to cross-thread them, making a right mess of the manifold. I'm doing the screws up so they're quite tight, but nothing silly. When the engine's warmed up on the first run, I'll give them another little tweak. Shouldn't need anything else. Just Engines do a fitting kit for these pipes. Comes with a short bit of joiner tube, some clamps and standoffs. But I thought, well, it can't be that hard to do, so I raided the parts bin. Found a length of silicone tube that just happens to be a nice snug fit on the pipe, so we'll have a bit of that. It needs to be just long enough we can have a small gap between the pipes and have the tube go over the pipes 8 or 10 millimeters. Pretty simple, but it's a shame it's green and not red. For the main exhaust mount, I found these zip tie saddle mounts. They're nylon, but there won't be too much heat at this end of the pipe with all the airflow, so they should do just fine. The mount has a hole in the middle, and the zip tie goes through the mount, which will wrap around the pipe. Simple. It'll get attached with a nylon bolt with a steel nut. Would rather it was a nylon nut too, but I haven't got any of the right size. It'll do though. We need to find where the mount wants to go. You could measure things, but on this model by eye will be just fine. With the exhaust fairly straight, it sits right around here. Near enough right on the line and a little back from the canopy. We need to mark the hole, a couple of twists with a drill bit, just enough to mark the surface. Before drilling all the way through, it's worth double checking what might be in the way on the other side. And it looks like it's going to come really close to the Spectrum TM1000 telemetry module, so we'll peel that off the side just in case. Otherwise it's a clear path. Drill the hole properly and we'll pop the screw in to see where it comes. Just below the Velcro. So the TM1000 is okay to go back when we're done, but the screw is just outside of the plywood doubler. The balsa sheet alone won't be enough to mount the exhaust. I've cut this bit of scrap ply to roughly the right shape with the hole near one edge that will butt up against the doubler in the fuselage. Going to use some 5-minute epoxy for this. It will fill any gaps, making it all nice and solid. Wants to go quite a way down in the fuselage and there's a linkage in the way. Getting it in with fingers would be tricky. Easiest workaround is to stick a knife blade into the wood. It'll hold it well enough to get it in, but it will come away easily. We want lots of epoxy on the main face and a nice bit along the edge that will butt up to the doubler. Now we can position it in the fuselage and fairly quickly tip it over and fine tune it. The problem with 5-minute epoxy, it does harden rather quickly. You probably can't see it, but it's in there. Just need to let it completely set. Right, a little while later now, so we can clear the whole of any oozed epoxy. Just run a drill bit through. Now the mount can go on with the screw. The nut on the inside. Going to do it up just lightly for now until we're sure it doesn't need to come off again. Looks about right though. Next, the pressure pipe. Obviously the original tube isn't going to reach the nipple, and it looks like I need to buy a few more meters of fuel tube as these are the longest bits I can find. Not a problem though, we can use a couple of bits of brass tube to make some joints. Nice. With a tube that long it'll need something to stop it flapping around in the wind. Looks like a couple of P-cleats will be ideal. Can use the brass bits in the tube for anti-crush too. It's almost like I planned it. Going to mark the position of the P-cleats with a drill bit, then flip the fuselage over and drill the hole for a small screw. Keep in mind the fuel tank lives up the front there and we don't really want to make a hole in it. The length of the tube needs a bit of fine tuning. We want the tubes from the nipple to come around in a curve without any kinks and be mounted around here somewhere. Trim the end off the tube, pop on the P-cleat, and yep, that looks pretty good. To get to this one we need to pop off the pipe. Good job we didn't rush on and fit the zip ties already. This P-cleat wants to be at the same height as the first and positioned so the tube is pulled slightly tight. Pretty straightforward. The pipe can go back on and we can see how it looks. Pretty good, I think. Okay, pipe off one more time. We need to make it permanent. We can't use normal Loctite on a nylon screw. You can use just about any glue that won't attack nylon though. I tend to go for U-Pour. It's easier to get it where you want it than thin Sino, and it will take a while to dry so we won't find it going off before we get it done up. We only need a little. A blob on a cocktail stick will do the job just fine. Then the screw gets done up with the nut going over the glue. It doesn't need to be super tight. With nylon screws you can kind of feel the screw start to stretch. It starts to feel a bit springy. There's no need to go any tighter. Now the pipe can go back on, this time along with a zip tie. We want the end of the zip tie to be underneath so it's hidden, and the zip tie wants to be pulled nice and tight. There we go, perfect. Pressure pipe on, nice. A couple of zip ties on the joiner. You'd probably get away without any, but they won't do any harm. That all looks pretty tidy. Only one thing left. With the exhaust so close to the side of the fuselage and two-stroke glow engines being quite oily things, we really need an exhaust deflector. Really easy to fit. They just slide over the end of the exhaust and then there's two zip ties to keep them in place. Simple and should keep a little of the oil off the model. Right then, centre of gravity has been checked. Ended up bolting some brass onto the engine bearers as the pipe moves the centre of gravity 10mm or so further back. What we've got here is some footage of the model with the stock pipe. The camera is off to one side with the microphone gain set manually. This isn't really a scientific test, but it'll do I reckon. The engine is tuned just off peak. Let's see what it sounded like. Okay, and now for the power pipe. It's a bit smoky at spool up, but that's the low end tuning. It won't really affect the full throttle. Well, that sounds pretty much the same on the ground. The engine does pick up a lot faster though. I think the best test will be just to fly it. Here we go then, a half throttle takeoff. It's 4-stroke and quite a bit idle, still a bit rich, quite a bit of smoke too. Here's a high speed pass. The auto gain on the mic is back on by the way. The sound is quite a bit smoother than it was. There's a lot less of the harshness to the sound. I like it. Full throttle I think is required. Not sure what the RPM is, but it sounds quite a bit higher. I reckon we could add some pitch to the prop and get even more speed. I think what we have here is a hot rod super air. Nice. The landing wasn't quite so graceful. A tailwind coupled with an already bent undercarriage. Quite amusing though. Who needs wheel brakes? The undercarriage bent back so far on impact the tyres have left holes in the wing covering. Never did really like them. So next mod on the list for this model is fuselage mounted undercarriage in front of the wing. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. A little tease for anyone who lasted this long. The next truck build is on its way. Actually, it's stuck in customs at the moment. Once they've had a play with it, it should be on its way to me. Fun times. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like if you liked, and if you're not already, why not subscribe? It's free after all. Bye guys.